The morning rush in downtown Seattle was loud, chaotic, and restless, but amid all the noise, one woman stood frozen near the entrance of a busy cafe, clutching her phone with trembling hands. Her name was Ava, a 29-year-old deaf woman who had fought her entire life to navigate a world that rarely slowed down enough to understand her. Today, her quiet struggle became painfully visible as she tried to order a simple cup of coffee. People shuffled past her, baristas called out orders she could not hear, and her anxiety swelled until her eyes glistened with helplessness. In a place where thousands of voices blended into a blur of sound, she felt more alone than ever, until a stranger noticed the fear behind her forced smile. That stranger was Mark, a 35-year-old single dad who had once lived through the same pressure when raising his daughter who couldn't speak for the first 4 years of her life. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. As Ava stood silently at the counter, the barista repeated the question she couldn't hear, and heat crept up her cheeks as frustration tightened her expression. She tried showing her order typed on her phone, but the barista looked confused, overwhelmed by the ever-growing line behind her. People sighed, some shifted impatiently, and the weight of embarrassment pressed down on her until her fingertips shook. She had been through this before, too many times, but something about today felt heavier, like she was just one moment away from breaking. That was when Mark stepped forward, his daughter's tiny hand wrapped around his. He had come in for a quick coffee before dropping his little girl at school, but the look in Ava's eyes stopped him mid-stride. He recognized that look. He had lived it. Taking a gentle breath, he let go of the past memories that still tugged at his chest and stepped closer. Years ago, he had learned basic sign language for his daughter, Grace, hoping it would help her express herself until she finally found her voice. He hadn't used those signs in a long time, but something deep inside told him that today, they mattered again. He lifted his hands and signed a simple, reassuring message, his movements soft and steady. Ava's eyes widened, her brows lifting in pure surprise, and for the first time that morning, her breathing slowed. Her tense shoulders loosened, her heart steadied, and a spark of hope flickered where panic had been. The room around her seemed to soften as Mark signed her order to the barista clearly, and the confusion at the counter quickly faded. Even Grace joined in, signing a small hello with the big bright smile that children share so naturally. Ava's expression transformed completely, her lips curled into a grateful, emotional smile she hadn't expected to show in front of strangers. She nodded a soft thank you, covering her heart with her palm, and for a moment, the cafe felt like a small pocket of warmth inside a cold, noisy city. Once her coffee was handed to her, she stepped aside, but her eyes kept drifting back to the man and his daughter as they waited for their order. She didn't feel invisible anymore. She didn't feel like a burden. She felt seen, truly seen, by someone who understood a struggle she rarely spoke about. Mark offered her a gentle nod before turning back to Grace, but Ava hesitated only a moment before approaching him again. Through signs and a few typed words, she expressed how deeply his kindness meant to her. He responded with humility, explaining that he once lived through similar moments with Grace, and helping her today simply felt right. But Ava saw more than kindness, she saw a man carrying the quiet heaviness of a single parent who had fought too hard, for too long, without expecting anything in return. The three of them ended up sitting together at a small corner table, where Grace animatedly signed simple words she remembered from her early childhood. Ava smiled wider with every exchange, her heart warming at the little girl's enthusiasm. It had been years since anyone communicated with her so naturally, without hesitation or pity. It wasn't charity, it was connection. And that made all the difference. As they talked, Ava learned that Mark worked long shifts at a warehouse, struggling to make ends meet while caring for his daughter on his own. She saw exhaustion behind his smile, resilience behind his humor, and love behind every glance he gave Grace. Something urged her to help, though she didn't yet know how. Later that evening, sitting in her small apartment, Ava typed a long message that she stared at for several minutes before sending. She had spent years working remotely as a graphic designer for a tech company but had recently been promoted to lead a new accessibility initiative. The team needed consultants, people who had lived through communication barriers. And suddenly, she knew exactly who could bring that experience with honesty, humility, and insight. She sent the message to Mark with hope trembling in her chest, an invitation for him to interview for a part-time position that paid far more than his current job and would allow him more time with Grace. When he read the message, he froze, overwhelmed, unsure whether he even deserved something so good. But Ava insisted, through signs, texts, and heartfelt sincerity, that he had earned it simply by being who he was. When the interview day arrived, Ava greeted him at her company building, her smile steady and reassuring. He wasn't alone this time. Grace clung to his hand with wide eyes and excitement. The team listened to his story, his experiences as a parent navigating communication challenges, and the thoughtful ways he had adapted for Grace. His voice was honest, steady, and real. By the end of the interview, there wasn't a single person in the room who didn't believe he belonged on the team. 2 days later, he received the offer letter. As he stood in the cafe again, this time with a new job, newfound confidence, and newfound peace, he saw Ava walk in, her smile brighter than before. Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, where words weren't necessary, gratitude, respect, and friendship flowed between them effortlessly. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people. Please comment below, what part of the story moved you the most? In a world full of noise, sometimes the most powerful connection begins with silence, and two hands willing to speak.